Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Conscious Conversations interview series with Psych-K facilitators from all around the world. Today, we are joined by Andy. Yep, Andy, hello. How are you today, my friend?
Howdy, I am doing Excel-tastic is my favorite word. So excellent and fantastic. I am just super.
It's good. It's good. I like that. Excel-tastic. I like it. So you are in Missouri, is that correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
You're in Missouri in America. Is that right? North Carolina?
I am in Missouri.
Yeah.
We're about 4 hours south from where Frank and Jesse James, the James brothers, were born.
Wow.
So, interesting
That's awesome.
place. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So maybe you could just start by sharing a little bit about yourself. I know you've got a few cool things going on there. Some nice concepts. You love your quantum physics, and you've got a coaching business over there. You do EFT and astrology. So let's open up, man. How's the
Yeah.
story? How did Psych-K come to you, and what was going on in your life at that time?
Well, my life, to tell you about myself and everyone else, I come from a family where depression is prevalent, and I guess in society as well. And it was something that was handed down to me from my family. And I achieved what I wanted to do when I was 19, and I had a scholarship to play rugby at Arkansas State. And I was doing what I really wanted to do, but I was not happy. I wasn't experiencing joy, and I was still depressed. And at the age of 20, when I came back, a friend that came into my life happened to do Psych-K, and I decided to do it. And I went from being depressed to, I guess, happy for the first real time in my life. Not. I think I heard a study that said when someone gets a physical item, it increases their mood, but for so long afterwards, they grow used to it and it doesn't work anymore. And I had experienced that, but just not real, true happiness, lasting happiness. That wasn't caused by things. So I did that, and then about 5 years went by, and at the age of 25, maybe I was 26. But anyways, I met someone who really, I could just tell they were off. They needed to learn Psych-K. So in 2014, I became a Psych-K facilitator, and I've been practicing it. Life has thrown all sorts of objects at me, and just events. And it's something I've been able to learn from, and using the techniques, the Psych-K techniques, I've been able to grow into who I am today. And I'm really at peace with who I am and the world and just everything. I'm not really a politics guy. And here in America, the Trump Democrat thing is just really going off, and I can't be bothered. Not that I'm not concerned about the future, but I am just at peace, and it's really profound. And let's see, I'm a second generation astrologer as well. That is something I learned from my mom. I used to think it was a bunch of hokey stuff, and mom actually she had a reading from an astrocartographer or she got me a reading for my birthday. And the guy was really good at what he does. And basically, he plotted out my birth chart, my astrology chart on a map of where the energies were. And he told me where they run and how they would affect me in those locations. And I've been to 3 of the places he recommended, and I really loved them. And one of those was actually Albuquerque, New Mexico, not too far from Taos, where the founder of Psych-K, or the pioneer of Psych-K, lives. But I started studying astrology as well, and I realized all I do, I look at the angles of the planets in relationship to the Earth, and I just interpret mathematical patterns. All the signs can be put into numbers, and I just look at numbers, and I look at the patterns and how they can affect people's lives. There's many different interpretations, and I've had a blast with that as well. And I became an EFT practitioner as well, which is, it's another subconscious change technique, and it allows people to release emotions that they've been holding on to and haven't been able to let go. And I'm not a coach anymore. I started coaching rugby when I was 19. I do not have a coaching business. I'd like to make that or discern that. But I do use stuff I've learned from coaching when I work with people, developing skills and talents, myelin. And I take a very practical approach to everything I do. So let's see. Another thing I wrote down is quantum physics, because we've talked about that. Yeah. I do bring quantum physics into what I do as well. You know, basically the world as we perceive it, it doesn't, for example, you know, I have this tea right here, and when I take a sip, I'm going to pretend it just burned me, and it's not really that hot, but ow! That's too hot. But what does that really say about what's happening? My experience. In physics, I'll ask you, what is heat? And heat is movement. So the atoms and molecules that make up my tea are just moving faster than a block of ice. So I didn't pick up my tea and say, ouch, too fast. So reality is, it's a lot different than, I'd say, the Western view that we have of it. The principles of quantum physics, I've actually never taken a physics course. I didn't take physics in high school. I don't do the mathematics. But there are several books on the implications of quantum physics and what they mean in our everyday life. And they're very important, because when we start seeing it from a quantum view, there's endless possibilities, as opposed to the classic Newtonian view that we have on everything. You know, Bruce Lipton's epigenetics came about. Bruce Lipton's epigenetics and his revelations about that came about after reading a quantum physics books. And you know, I've personally experienced a big shift in my health for the positive. I feel much better than I ever have after doing Psych-K and EFT. And it's a quantum view. It's not like, you know, when we go to the doctor, take some pills, and because the pills are temporary. If we want to make, you know, we're really, you know, you and I appear to be, you know, fixed objects. If you're here, you can touch me, your hand lands on my face and it doesn't go through my head. But we really are just processes, small processes of atoms and molecules. And we can take medicine and it will affect our process. But when we change who we are as a process, it changes our perception of the world, and it changes, as Bruce Lipton's research shows, our epigenetic readout in our health. So it's just very profound and cool stuff. And especially being an astrology guy, going into astronomy and as well, and black holes and, you know, all that. I believe that is all I have to say. But that's all I have written down.
Yeah, it's a weird and wonderful world out there, especially when we start looking into the invisible world, which, you know, kind of that's what we're working with. We're programming, ultimately, we're programming space with Psych-K. We are space and we prepare the space to create something new. Do you have any examples of some of the books you read? I know I've got one here, Happy Pocket Full of Money. He touches on a bit of quantum physics and how our thoughts create our reality. Do you have any other examples for anyone who's watching that might be interested that have really helped you?
I do. One of my favorite books, I actually have it right here, is Diane Collins' Do You Quantum Think?
Make note of that. Do you quantum think?
And I actually have to write Diane. I wrote her a while ago, and some of my friends correspond with her. Another one I have is Lothar Schaefer, Infinite Potential, What Quantum Physics Reveals About How We Should Live. And that's a really good one as well. Deepak Chopra, he wrote the foreword, and his book company published that one. And it's really great stuff. And if you really want something light, and there's less of a metaphysical perspective on this one, but 7 Brief Lessons on Physics by Carlo Rovelli. Carlo Rovelli is just a brilliant writer, brilliant scientist. He's essentially the Stephen Hawking of, he's my parents' age, so I guess my parents' generation. But those are 3 that, 3 of my favorites, and I refer to them quite often.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. I've made note of a couple of those. I'm going to look them up for sure. Cool. So how did you learn Psych-K? How was your first workshop? What was that for you? How did that go?
I'm sorry, could you repeat? What workshop did you say?
Just your first Psych-K workshop. So how was it for you?
It was pretty good. It was very interesting because I was 25 or 26 at the time, and everyone else, I think, was above the age of 60. And I really didn't know what to expect. It's cool because I've met younger people than me who do it now, who do the process and facilitate it. It was a good time. I really enjoyed myself. The first time I did Psych-K was not in a workshop, and it was with my friend Jessica Montana, and she is also an acupuncturist in Hawaii, and I believe the name of her business is Green Maui Medicine, if you're in Hawaii and want to look her up. But it was really cool. I'd never heard of Bruce Lipton or the biology of belief before it, because most people who come to the workshops, or at least that workshop, or I believe everyone else, came because they heard about Psych-K in his book. And I'd never read his book, and I came because I had the experience. So it was really cool about learning biology, and the first time I read The Biology of Belief was shortly after that, and that's another fantastic book.
Yeah, it is, and I'm the same. Like when I first left, there wasn't many young people doing it, so I'm stoked to meet people starting to get a few younger males. That's really important too, because you know, we need to have balance and to be able to process our emotions and to be able to work through things and have peace in our life. And I think it's very important, and it's great that we have young dudes in the community now, and I'm sort of stoked to be connecting with you. I was the same sort of thing in my experience. I hadn't even experienced any of it, so it was just like a total mind blow for me when I was in my workshop.
Wow.
Huge, and I hadn't even done any personal development before that. It was all very new, changing my life, and it's been a massive journey ever since. Massive journey ever since. So how do you use Psych-K? What do you
Definitely.
do now? Or how do you incorporate it? What kind of people do you work with? How do you actually work professionally now?
I work with the right people, and they just tend to show up or email me, or I just meet them every day. And there's a distinction. Psych-K facilitators don't talk about other modalities a lot. And I'd like to make the distinction. Psych-K can definitely be done as a standalone process. And I've had people who've just worked with Psych-K with me. But I find that doing EFT as well, it creates a synergetic effect. They enhance each other in ways that they'd not be able to before when they're done properly. But I use those two techniques and I just let my intuition guide me. Sometimes people come and they just want to do EFT, or they just want to do Psych-K, or they just want to do astrology. As an astrologer, it's good to know about the person. Anyone can, look at 12 signs, but it really doesn't say anything about the person. As an astrologer, I'll ask people about their situations, and then I typically take 30 minutes to an hour before I do a reading. And some people just come for readings. So it just depends what the people need. I do tend to read a lot. I love reading. And sometimes it's saying the right things, informing people talking about quantum physics sometimes, because I've done the techniques, the Psych-K techniques, I've done balances, and then I've learned more about reality. And maybe perhaps when I was younger, I wanted, physical things. Psych-K or quantum physics reveals that our world is about interactions and relationships. We're processes. And as these are beings, us being beings, we're processes. In the processes, we occur things, physical objects. So it's really, doing the quantum physics, it's made me take a look at how I do Psych-K. Did that seem coherent? It's been a little bit of a day for me.
Yeah, no, it is evening over there for you. It's a morning for me. I'm full of energy. But maybe you could just elaborate a little bit on that. Maybe an example of how that's actually transpired for you.
Okay. So a happy pocket full of money. I actually just watched the documentary The Secret on Netflix, and the guy who wrote A Happy Pocket Full of Money was, I believe he was the creative advisor for that documentary. And I'd been to a law of attraction meeting before, and I kind of brushed it off because some people there seemed to be doing really well and some didn't. So I didn't look at it at the time, and now it's something that's come up multiple times. Even just yesterday, someone I randomly met, we got into it, talking about it. But to look at it from a quantum physics perspective, basically, if we attract what we think about, it's quantum physics reveals that we're all interconnected. Everything's interconnected at some point, and we can attract things without physically going out in the world and doing it. Now, I'm not saying that to get what we want in life, we don't have to go out, work, communicate with other people. But there's things we don't know how it works exactly. And with quantum physics, you look at the process, I mentioned, us as processes, and as processes, we give off byproducts or we don't. Um, you know, some people want money in life. It's a big thing. They don't have enough. And as a process, do they, produce money, but do they attract it as well? And then it goes all the way up to the macro level as well. Because these patterns are prevalent throughout, our life. And you look at like a corporation might produce goods, but they might produce, a corporation's a process as well, and it might produce, pollution as well, money, jobs, and so on. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I guess what I was kind of asking,
it can be difficult.
Is there an experience you've had? So there's a bit of a lag there. Is there an experience you've had where you've balanced it, or you've done some Psych-K work, and you've sort of seen it in real time almost?
Yeah, I think for anyone that hasn't experienced it, if you have, really the emotions are strong. Our emotions, when we talk about epigenetics, are really big factors because however we feel, those are the chemicals our body produces. And for me personally, in the past, when I'm angry, my shoulder feels like it's going to fall out of its socket. It's I've partially separated the AC joint a few times playing rugby, and it feels like the exact same when I'm angry. So if in the past, when I have done a balance, the techniques for around my anger and transformed them into peace, joy, happiness, love, any positive emotion, it's wild if you've not experienced that before.
It's interesting to see how the body reacts. I was talking to a lady just the other day in an interview, and she said she had someone who came out in hives. Like the hives came out doing it when they were transforming the perception of a stressful situation. And then once it all comes to a state of peace and non-attachment, the hives just disappeared. So right there and then they appeared and disappeared. Or, I've had people where their body's convulsing and shaking violently, or, it's just the body processing it all out. And it's pretty incredible what happens.
Yeah.
And the body's intelligence to do what it actually does. To be a viewer and a participant in that's pretty cool. Cool.
Humans are pretty amazing in that respect, and I guess so are all the other creatures on the planet.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe you could. What's your definition of Psych-K? What does it mean for you?
I was trying to figure that out ever since I started doing it. I finally came up with an answer.
Good. Please share.
Psych-K is a way to consciously create a person and their life, and the person who's doing it. It's but that's in a nutshell what it is.
Because if we're not deciding, somebody else will be deciding for us, I suppose. Hey.
Yeah, or circumstances. But it's all how you look at it, I guess. Yeah. It's all about perception. Huh?
We're all about changing those perceptions. Nice. Cool. So, moving forward, like this year, the whole new year, do you have anything you're planning? Anything you're creating, consciously creating?
Yeah, we a few of us as facilitators do want to have a facilitators retreat where we don't necessarily teach Psych-K. We can practice it, but it's mainly just to get together. So we'll have to see where that takes us. And a few of my buddies, a few of my friends in the Psych-K world and quantum physics world, we want to put together a program or possibly a workshop where we explain quantum physics. And it is what I've done as a coach and how I teach is I put people in environments to have the predicted outcomes. So trying to do that with quantum physics in a workshop where people can have quantum leaps and just take big step forwards in their life and do what they want is something I'm figuring out right now.
Yeah, I love it. Do you have an example, a success story of someone that you've worked with that has had that experience, where they've really changed things and shifted things in a short space of time?
Yes. I have a few, and I'm thinking of the most profound one. Mm-hmm. One of the, one girl I worked with recently, I believe she's 23 and very young. I took developmental psychology last semester, and the 20s are for discovering who a person is. And I always say the 30s is when a person's life really starts. Mm. But she was in a bad marriage where her husband threatened to kill himself if she left. Mm. And she felt stress around his family and really did not like his family. And whenever she tried to work, she would have blackouts and just faint. So she came to me, we did EFT, and then we did some balances as well. And within a month and a half, she had left her husband and was filing for a divorce. And the last time I talked to her, she is, I believe, traveling around the country with her friend and learning how to be a truck driver. Just very profound shift in just an hour.
Yeah. And like some people listening may think that that's a bad outcome because, divorce may not be an ideal situation, but the reality is we can't settle for something that is not in alignment with us. If we're being emotionally abused in a relationship or something, that relationship is not for us or in alignment with us. So letting go of that and having peace about that, I'm sure it wasn't, maybe there was involved in the separation, but I'm sure she would have peace with the decisions that she was making. Would you agree?
Well, yes. And can we do some trivia? I'll ask you a question, and my psychology teacher told me this.
Yeah, do it.
So, in the United States today, how many marriages end up in divorce?
I'm going to say 60%.
It's very close, 50.
50.
40 to 50. But, as a physics guy, I always take the neutral view, as objective as possible, and I look at it as people today are marrying for love, and over the past 2,000 years, people have struggled to survive, and marriage was often for economic survival and to have food. The role of marriage has changed differently. We're learning, people are learning more about themselves than ever. There's been, well, I haven't been there, so I can't really say, but I suspect that there is a higher consciousness. There are people who are more consciousness than ever, although that's not to say that there haven't been in the past. So that's my outlook on it. And I think divorce, if people are unhappy, it is a good thing. I was talking to one person who is a facilitator, and I don't know all that much. But in theory, she got married when she was 27, and she's going into, or she got married when she was 25, and she got married in, or she got married and she's getting a divorce after 12 years. And you know, if people don't know themselves, I haven't been married. I can't really say all that much about it, but from an outside perspective, people go into these relationships and you really have to guess, who is this person going to become? And if anything I've learned from quantum physics, our world is not predictable. We don't know what's going to happen. So I think people learning themselves, getting divorced, and trying again is a great thing, because there's always hope. If anything I've learned, there is always hope.
Well, that's what Bruce Lipton talks about a lot in his book, The Honeymoon Effect, is that when we're falling in love, we only see the good qualities of that person. But then when those love chemicals wear off and all of a sudden the real person presents themselves, it's like, whoa, who are you? Where have you been? I didn't know you. This isn't who I decided to get into a relationship with, because then all the limiting beliefs start to come out when we're not having that conscious, we're not loved up and in that love drug. And often that's when that's when the real work of a relationship starts, that you start to build a relationship together and own each other, own yourself, and love each other through everything. But if both parties aren't willing to grow and accept each other wholly in all our glory, then often it will just fall away.
Very true.
Right? So Bruce Lipton, again,
Yeah,
he knows what he's talking about there too.
very, very wise person. It's you know, we're supposed to be connected. When people grow apart in relationships, it's not supposed to be like that, and it's a sign it's not working. No one really gains anything by doing something that isn't effective or not working.
Yeah.
So yeah, very.
And not just in like, it doesn't matter if it's a relationship with a person. That could be with anything, with our job, with a certain family member, with a relationship with an object, inanimate objects. We're all attached to it, and if it's no longer healthy, or a behaviour, if we're attached to that behaviour, if it's no longer healthy, then that's when we need to be able to change those. And it's why it's great to have processes like this and similar things like EFT, but with Psych-K, to be able to change that when it's happening, to be able to adapt, to move and grow through it and evolve and become a better version of ourselves as a result of what life is presenting to us.
Very, very true. Yeah, I agree completely.
I do enjoy talking about this stuff.
I've noticed there's some country music's really big here, and one of the songs, it go the is it the chorus, the refrain, or whatever you call it? It goes, and that's the way I'll always be. But you know, if you get bored of it, or it's something that you're doing something that, you know, is aggravating or a big pain, or, you know, it's negative, the odds are that's going to be bad. You know, change is often a really good thing, or it is what we perceive it to be, really. So yeah, growth is great. Well, at least for me, it has been.
I think that's something that a lot of people have adopted. You know, this is the way I am. That's the way I've got to live. Everybody has to accept it. But this is the point of this interview series, is that it's not that way. If you are experiencing something in your life and you don't like it, you have the power to change it. You do not have to accept it. You can't it's not enough to just say I am the way I am because my parents were that way, or because school made me this way, or the government, or whoever it is that we're projecting that blame and guilt on. The point of all of this is to know that we have the power to change that, no matter what the circumstance is, and no matter how scary the outcome may appear to be while we're choosing that. Often, you know, the fear and love are the two sides of the same coin. If we can just receive it with love and grow through it, rather than holding ourselves back, just saying that it's the way I'll always be. it's a pretty limited thing, limited
Yeah.
view of life. It's not the way it would always be. Absolution is not real. Everything changes. That's the only thing that's real.
Yeah. What I found out from doing Psych-K, one of my big life lessons is what people want is not necessarily what they need or what's best for them too. I believe it is Henry Ford. I'll paraphrase a quote, but he said, "If I had given what people wanted, we'd have faster horses as opposed to cars."
Hey, faster horses.
That one always cracks me up. Yeah.
It'd be good fun. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been nice to connect with you and get into your mind a little bit. All that quantum physics. It's the new science, and it really is coming. So the more people that learn to understand it, more of average people like you and I that learn how to understand it and then can relate that to other people. Because I think sometimes the language, people get lost in the language and get a bit scared about it, but it doesn't have to be that scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at me, you and me. I was a carpenter up until I started doing this, and you were an electrician, just two average blokes. And I think the biggest thing I can say is if you understand the sentence I'm saying right now, you can definitely understand quantum physics. The implications are not that difficult. I bought a book of Werner Heisenberg's The Physical Principles of the Quantum Theory, and I basically don't understand it. I have to get another physics book to understand that. So the mathematics may be beyond my grasp at this point, or yours possibly. And there's many books and resources that just say it in plain English and are available.
Good. Otherwise, just keep listening to Andy.
I tend to rant occasionally. It's when everything's interconnected and interrelated, it tends to be a big subject.
Good, and it's good. It's the new science. It's what needs to be pushed out there, and people need to understand it so we can keep changing, evolving, and create that new consciousness and that new way of life. It's hugely important for us. Awesome, buddy. So there's been a lot of wisdom shared here today. Perhaps one other thing I like to do on the podcast, on the interview series, is maybe just one piece of advice, something an application in your life, something you live by, that anybody viewing might be able to adapt and integrate into their own life.
Why? Figure out why. Ask why, ask questions. If we do the same things, we'll get the same answers. There's always a different way to tackle things. There's always the opportunity for learning. People say it's a waste of time, and I'll bring up some coaching science, because now you can get a doctorate. There's so much science in coaching, and one of the things I learned is that coaches grow just like players. They're not all the same. And the coach learning process is when they reflect on what they've done and think about what they can do differently and have different outcomes. So ask why.
I love that. And that's a philosophy behind Psych-K. It's just to be curious, question that, to look at. Where does that come from? Why is it there? What does it mean for me? What do I want instead? It's a great question to ask. Cool. So if people want to find you, how can they find you, Andy? Anybody listening that we've been talking about today that resonate and they might want to hit you up, where can they find you?
So I have my business, The Other Wisemen, and I have a Facebook page. And that is linked to my listing on the preferred affiliates list for the Psych-K facilitators. So if you go to the Psych-K International website and you click on preferred affiliates, and you click search and you type in Andy, yep, you'll find me.
Nice. All righty, mate. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, as I said, love joining with you and connecting with you. Another young conscious male. It's good. Young conscious male, unconscious male. But yeah, been great chatting to you, buddy, and really look forward to growing together and watching your journey just as you watch mine.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Alexi.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching and tuning in again today. I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode. It's Alexi J. McDonald signing out from today's episode of Conscious Conversations. Have a great day, guys. See you, Andy.